Hello, everyone. Well, I've been enjoying studying Roman painting lately. It's incredible. The Romans did everything. The Roman painters were the most amazing craftsmen and very creative, and we'll look at some of their greatest work here. Now, the way we know about Roman painting is very interesting. It comes from two places, the city of Pompeii and Herculaneum. And these were Roman cities that were covered in ash after the eruption of Mount Vesuvius. And so everything that was there in these two cities that wasn't destroyed was preserved under the ash. So all of these examples that I'm going to show you are coming from Pompeii and Herculaneum, and they're very well preserved. We know the Greeks made fresco paintings, but because they weren't protected and preserved, we don't really have any examples of them. The Roman paintings that have been preserved are in very good shape. One reason they're still so vivid is because the Roman painters, like the prehistoric cave painters that we looked at the beginning of the year, are using mineral pigments. And mineral pigments are made from minerals from the earth, of different kinds. And if you were a wealthy person, you could afford from some very vivid, colorful pigments. If you were not so wealthy, you had to settle for things that were a little more drab. But people loved art, they loved paintings. So if you wanted a painting in your home, you had to hire someone to come in and paint the walls for you to make a mural. There were two kinds of mural paintings. The ones we're looking at mostly are called frescoes, and that's a great word, fresco. It just means fresh. And these were painted on fresh plaster. So they would put down a layer of fresh, wet plaster and paint with these mineral pigments right into the plaster. And these would bond and they would last a long, long time, very durable that way. They also painted in what they call a Seco style, which was basically just painting on dry plaster. And these did not endure as well. They didn't last as long. And you can see where they would maybe flake off and things over time because the paint is just sitting on top of the plaster. So we're going to look at these four different styles that we see in Roman painting. Now, they had the same categories that we do today. Portrait, landscape painting, still life painting, genre painting, which is just scenes from everyday life. Genre is another great word to know, another French word. But they also had four unique sort of styles that we're going to cover. And because they're associated with Pompeii, they're called the Pompeian styles. And so these are the four kind of main categories that they break down Roman painting into. The first one was called incrustation. Incrustation is mainly what we would call something like faux finish. They would break the wall up into sort of colored panels, and their walls basically were plain plaster, and they didn't like that any more than you would. They wanted to decorate their space. And so they would paint the wall to look like something besides plaster, like stone or brick or exotic marbles and things like that, and make it look like something else. And they would add little architectural details and things like columns too, just to spruce it up and to make the space more interesting and to look richer. So this was the incrustation style. After that, things really took off. The artists figured out that they could paint the wall in an illusionistic way and make it look as if there were shelves projecting out with objects on them, or niches in the wall with things tucked in there, and they would paint those. And this was called the architectural style because these were little architectural illusions that they would add. And so it made the room look different. And then they figured out we could do away with the wall altogether. We could paint this wall as if it's not there, as if you're looking out at a landscape or into a garden, looking at a fountain, animals, plants, trees, and columns and all kinds of fantasy sort of visions. So this became a very popular style for quite a long time, with the artists really sort of just figuring out how far they could go to make it look as if these walls were not there, because that was the goal. Roman homes didn't have a lot of windows, and these interior rooms could be very kind of closed-in feeling. And so this was a way to make these rooms seem much more open. So that's the architectural style. After the architectural style, maybe a change in taste came along and people were a little tired of the illusionistic painting. They decided to pull that back and do something more elegant and refined and simple, and that is called the ornamental style. And the ornamental style was something that was, again, just more refined and tasteful, more balanced, always with decorative kind of architectural elements, maybe a little statuette, maybe a little portrait here and there, but not so much the illusionism that you saw in the previous style, the architectural style. And then finally, at the end, the last of the Pompeian styles is called the intricate style. And it's basically a combination of all these three previous styles. It's everything plus the kitchen sink thrown in. You have elements of the architectural style with the illusions. You have figure painting and portrait painting. You have the incrustation, the faux finishes in the marble and all kinds of things. And then you also have the decorative effects that you saw with the ornamental style. So basically, these artists were just doing everything they could think of in that final style. And that is the last style that we see developed right before the eruption of Mount Vesuvius. After that, though Romans kept painting things in their homes, we really don't have another style that develops until the end of the empire. So these are the four main styles of Roman painting. They're painting mostly in fresco. They're using mineral pigments. These paintings and these artists show a kind of art that is sophisticated and elegant and creative, and it's not matched for 1,000 years after that. We don't see anything like it in the world until 13th or 14th century in the West. And that's not so much because medieval people were not as creative or smart as Romans, but it took that long, I think, for Western civilization to recover from the fall of Rome, to regain the sort of prosperity and resources and time needed to train artists to work at that level. So next we're going to be looking at Roman mosaic that follows a lot of the same kind of creative patterns, but also has some other aspects that are very interesting to look at. I'll see you next time.